Welcome back to Small Town Sound, the podcast where we celebrate the people, programs, and passion that make music education thrive in small towns across America. I'm your host, Steve Brown, and each episode we sit down with directors who are making an incredible impact not only on their students, but their communities as well. My guest today is Gerardo Loya, Head Band Director at Kaufman Independent School District. His career has taken him from small town of Muleshoe to Monahans, Ferris, Castleberry, and now Kaufman, where he continues a tradition of excellence while shaping the next generation of musicians and leaders. Gerardo, thank you so much for being on Small Town Sound.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Let's start at your hometown, the high school you grew up in, the music program that you grew up in. What was it like? What did you like about it? Maybe what did you not like about it? Were there any influences, things like that?
I mean, it was a small town, and so we were very close-knit. I was raised by my grandmother, so that's why I was living in Muleshoe when I started school. And believe it or not, English was my second language when I first got into school. And, being raised by my grandmother was, her being single and just the community itself, it was so close-knit that I was able to just learn from everyone, basically. It's not like living in a big, huge metroplex where you don't know anyone. And so I was really close to, the family doctor because I went to high school with his kids. And so it was just very close-knit and definitely did learn a lot because I did Boy Scouts with all these people and then eventually joined band when I was in 6th grade. So just, I don't have any negative things to say about it.
Sure. Yeah, that's one thing that I've I kind of knew that going in. I was raised in a small town myself, and I'm now teaching back in the same small town that I grew up in. So I kind of know that feeling of knowing everybody and feeling comfortable when you walk outside and just you're able to wave at probably 50 people walking down the street. So yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So what were your music programs like? You said you started in 6th grade. What were your programs like? What were your ensembles like? Things like that.
Well, looking back on it now, it wasn't as good as what I have now, but it definitely taught me everything I needed to know. It took me a while too. I was a clarinet player. I was not a very good clarinet player, and I kind of came into it. I think the light bulb finally came on when I was in 8th grade, and my band director handed me a cassette tape. I don't know if very many people in high school right now know what a cassette tape, or much less a 6th grader would know right now, but it was a recording of our all-region music. And he said, "Here, go practice with this cassette tape." And I went home and just started hacking at it, and somehow I made the all-region band when I was in 8th grade, and that just kind of started clicking things in my brain for me, and the light bulbs and everything started going on. And next thing I know, I was a freshman in high school making All-State, and so I made All-State freshman through senior year. I was a 4-year All-State clarinet player, and I was lucky enough that both of my band directors, we only had 2, were clarinet players as well, so I was able to learn a lot from them. We made Division I's. We made Division I's at marching and at concert and sight reading, so I knew what it was like to play in a good band. But being a small band, I never got the opportunity to play the kind of music that I did when I was in the All-State bands, of course, because it was a small town. So we didn't play grade 5 literature. We played maybe grade 2 or 3, 4 if we were feeling brave.
Right. Sure. So you went, after high school, you went to Angelo State University. Can you talk a little bit about that? First of all, let's backtrack a little bit. So the directors that you had in Muleshoe, are those the directors who kind of geared you towards or steered you towards music education, or was it somebody else?
Well, they definitely tried. I had no intention of studying music when I graduated high school. I wanted to be a doctor, and I actually studied biology when I was in my first year of college. But I spent most of my time in the band hall because I was in the band, of course. I did the marching band. And I think I remember signing up for private clarinet lessons, and the private teacher at Angelo State finally said, "Why are you not majoring in music? You're here all the time. You don't even go to the science labs anymore." I just wasn't interested in the science after all. And so my two band directors in high school definitely sculpted who I was as a musician and what I wanted to do in life, I thought, but I had no intention of majoring in music until after my first year in college.
Yeah, it's crazy that there are so many band directors that started out in medicine or science or, like engineering or something like that, and then end up in music. I know I was sitting in concert band or wind symphony at SIU-E, and the band director was like, "Oh yeah, we actually try to recruit. We put up posters and things like that in the science halls and in the medicine halls because we know that those are the type of brains we want, and we know that a lot of them aren't going to stay there. So we try to recruit from those different professions."
For sure.
Yeah, I started in architecture, and I had about a semester of architecture, and I was like, you know what, this is not for me. I was always listening to music, and unbelievably, my mentor, or if you can have a mentor your freshman year of college, but my professor that I liked the most was Dr. Tim. And of course we have a Dr. Tim in the music profession, that we all love and whatever. But anyway, Dr. Tim told me, you don't need to be in architecture. You need to drop this and study music starting now. So that day I went and I tried to see what it would take to audition for the music department. So it was just crazy that we all have similar stories like that.
Yes. I just spent all my time in the band hall and in the music practice rooms playing my clarinet when I was in college, and the professors were like, "Why aren't you just come over here and major in music?" And so I did.
Right. So after college, your first job was at Monahans, is that correct?
Was, yes.
And you were there for 11 years where you had a lot of success. Your bands never missed qualifying for UIL State in the marching contest. Can you talk a little bit about that program?
Sure. Monahans was kind of a diamond in the rough in West Texas, and there are a lot of pockets of small schools in West Texas that probably have some similar stories, but Monahans had a band director by the name of Dan Gibbs, and he was a beacon in the band world. He started his career in Monahans, and he ended his career. He retired there and lived in Monahans for decades, even after he retired. And so Monahans just had this reputation of going to state and winning honor band and just all these accolades. It was just a wonderful band program. And so I applied for it, not sure if I would even get it. I think it helped that I student taught at Midland Lee and had the connections through Randy Story, who was the band director there. But I had no idea what I was doing when I first started teaching. So I took the job, and I just came in, and I just thought I was hot stuff because, I was a member or a director with this program, and it was good, but I didn't realize the kind of work I was about to do. And so Monahans just had this long history and culture. The kids that I taught, their parents and grandparents were in the band program with Mr. Gibbs, and a couple of directors even after that, after he retired. So it was just a rich history and culture of just incredible bands. And so I spent so much time with Mr. Gibbs, and I think I learned probably just about everything I know from him, because he spent time in our band halls and was probably there once a week just helping us, because how could you not ask someone to come help you like that? So Monahans definitely had a rich history of excellence that I just wanted to be a part of, and I stuck around for 11 years because of it.
Can you talk about a couple of accomplishments that you had there that will always be in your memory, or what some of the favorite things that you did while you were there?
Sure. There's countless students, of course, that qualified for all state, all region, state solo ensemble. We had several students that had gone off and studied music or are now doing countless other wonderful things like that are doctors and lawyers and engineers and lots of teachers. I feel like just going to state every other year at that time was just an accomplishment in and of itself. I think the community just expected it, so that was always neat to get to see the community rally behind the kids every year or every other year or every year, of course. But the whole state situation was just unique in Monahans, and that's just something that always comes to mind when I think of Monahans. Like, those people just expected it. It's just what happened, and so we had to work our butts off for it.
Talk a little bit about the students. What was their, you hear about successful programs, and you talk to, or at least I talk to the directors, but I don't ever get to really talk to the students. What was their dedication like, and what was their work ethic like, and things like that?
Well, I think band students are the most dedicated kind of kid. They have to have, for sure, that discipline. In Monahans, the kids, I think we shared probably 70% of our kids with every other program in the school district. We had tennis players. We had, I remember one year, I think we had 8 varsity football players, and we had cheerleaders, and we had just about anything and everything. And I can't remember a year where we didn't at least have the salutatorian of their class, every year when they graduated. So these kids were just involved in everything, and they were exhausted kids, but in a good way, because they would have to leave a tennis match early so they could come to UIL marching contests or whatever. There was just always something going on in these kids' lives, and our parents were just incredible at pulling the strings and getting them everywhere they needed to be. So these kids were definitely well-rounded and just good at everything. And it was amazing and just kind of a unique situation. And I'm sure that there are dozens of other small schools like that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's I've talked to band directors from Texas and Michigan and Alabama and, of course, my home state of Illinois, and they all have that in common. Their students are involved in so much, and my students are the same. They are the ones that are in the Scholar Bowl teams and the FFA programs, and of course, all of the athletics. And it's just crazy how they just want to, in a small school, they want to be a part of everything, and they want everything to succeed. And it's great that we have small schools that allow kids to do that. I don't know, I've never been in a large school, so I don't know. I've heard stories of, a student in a large school gets kind of pigeonholed, and you're the musician, and you're the football player or whatever. But in a small school, it just doesn't seem like that.
No, that's for sure. Even in Kaufman, we share some kids. It's not as much as it was in Monahans. Monahans was a smaller school than Kaufman, but not by much. But yeah, even in Kaufman, we have that situation.
So let's transition to Kaufman. You taught at a couple other schools, and then now you've settled in Kaufman, which is by Dallas, correct?
Yes, I actually live in Dallas. I live 30 minutes from Kaufman right now. So.
But
yes.
Kaufman itself is a small community of about 7,000 people. Is that correct?
Ish, I would say.
How big is the high school?
Right now, we're sitting at about just a little under 1,000 kids. We're a solid 4A, and I think the 4A program cutoff numbers are like 12 something, maybe almost 1,300, maybe. I can't remember the exact number. We used to be 5A, and we lost a lot of kids over the last couple of years for whatever reason. But yeah, it is definitely a small town. You can't go anywhere in Kaufman without knowing someone, of course.
Yeah, sure.
So
we talk a little bit. We have a similar friend. We have a mutual friend, Stan Malden, which a lot of my guests unbelievably know Stan, and he's a great guy.
Yes,
absolutely, yeah. And he's a great guy, and he's always very nice, and he's always willing to come and listen to you, or you can send audio clips of your groups, and he'll actually listen to them and send feedback back to you. It's just amazing. He's just a really, really good guy.
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about your relationship with him and what he has done for your program at Kaufman?
Well, believe it or not, I've known him since basically when I started college because I used to work our summer band camp that the university hosted. And he used to come as a guest clinician or he would work one of the bands. He would work the camp essentially. And so I met him then. I didn't really get to know him much. And then my best friend, Misty Mollendorf now, worked with him in the Wichita Falls area when he was in Holiday. She was one of his private lesson teachers. And I just kind of got to know him a little bit then. That's when he, of course, went to Midwest and was winning everything because he's Dan Malden. And eventually over the years, especially the last 2 or 3 years, I've called him a lot. I just reached out to him one day and said, "Hey, will you listen to this recording or will you watch this video?" And of course he said yes. And it wasn't even a huge wait. Like I guess he watched right away. He just stopped everything he was doing and called me right away and said, "All right, this is what you're going to do and this is how you're going to do it and make sure you do it tomorrow." And I did. I make sure that I listen to everything that he tells me to do and try to implement it as best as possible. But that's just Stan Malden. I don't think he can say no. He feels bad if he does. So I try not to take advantage of it because he is busy and has his own life. But I do try to ask for his help and advice as much as possible, for sure.
Yeah. I interviewed Matt Martindale last week. He's from Alabama. He's going to be presenting in Chicago at Midwest this December. And one thing that he said that I thought was so interesting is that Stan doesn't want to hear it finished product. He wants to hear it day one. He wants to hear what you sound like when you're sight reading, basically. So, which is awesome. So cool.
And scary.
Yes, absolutely.
No one to put out a recording or send a recording of your band on day one, but that's just what you have to do if you really want to improve, and Stan's good at that part.
Yeah. It definitely scary, especially when you're sending it to somebody who has so much experience with good quality bands. So yeah, it's very scary.
I definitely do that, and Jeff King is also one of my huge mentors, and I think I do that with Jeff King as well. Like I can't not send him recordings, and he definitely sets foot in my band hall several times a year. And so he and Stan both have been a huge integral part of my band director career, just learning how to be a band director. And I'm still learning after all these years.
Yeah, I don't think we ever stop learning. As a matter of fact, I had a bunch of musicians here in the studio playing the other night, and we were talking about just like young band directors. Of course, we're all old, so we're talking about how the differences between young band directors and older band directors, and I made the comment of, I used to not want anybody in my band room. I mean, like, I didn't want people walking by the band room to hear my band. And now I'm just like, after 25 years, I'm just like, oh my gosh, somebody please come in here and tell me what to do. Just
Yes.
don't just give me a little bit of advice. I want it written out, like step by step. How do I improve this? And it's just amazing how my philosophy has changed throughout the years.
Yeah, for sure. That's the key right there, is asking for help. And a lot of people are afraid to ask for help because they're either afraid of being told no or afraid of being told that it's terrible. And that's usually not the case.
Yeah, you're not going to hear either one of those. You're not going to hear no. You may hear, I can't right now, but I will. And you're not going to hear, your kids are horrible. I mean, I've never heard an adjudicator ever say that about any ensemble I've ever had, or any friend that I've had, tell me that they've said that about their ensembles. So it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about your performance with Doreen Ketchens. So this is how I came to know of you, because Stan was actually on the way to your school, I believe, and he's like, I had just interviewed him, and he and I have known each other for a couple of years, but I had just interviewed him, and he called me and he's like, hey, I know who your next guest is. and he told me your name and told me the story of how your jazz band is going to play with Doreen Ketchens, and I was just like, wait a minute, wait. So is this a small town? He's like, well, it is a small town, and it's a small school of a little bit under 1,000 kids, and they're just incredible. So can you talk a little bit about that whole experience, how it came about, and of course, what it felt like, and all those kinds of things?
Well, yes, it was because of Stan. This is all his fault. And essentially, he was in my office, and I have a canvas that my mother-in-law purchased for me while we were in New Orleans, and we happened to just run into Doreen's playing on Bourbon Street. And when we walked away, she stuck behind, and obviously she knew that I loved Doreen, and so she stuck behind and went and bought one of her canvases and got it autographed for me and gave it to me for Christmas. And Stan was in my office and saw that canvas. I think he was working with our student leadership team. And we took a break, and some of the kids were in there, and he just looked at the kids and said, "Hey, do y'all want to do a concert with Doreen?" And my eyes just kind of got really big, like, he can't be serious. And he got on the phone with her and said, "Hey, will you come play with the Kaufman Wind Ensemble? They're really good. I'd like for you to consider that." And she said, "Of course. There's that. What are you afraid of? What? Don't be afraid of asking." Her answer was yes. So I spent the next year just making sure that I was doing everything that I needed to do to prepare for this concert, and raising the money, first of all, to pay for it. I just signed up for it and said, I don't know how I'm going to pay for this, but we'll figure it out, kind of situation. And I mean, once she was on our campus, man, it was just, I was starstruck, first of all, because when she got and the kids were starstruck, but man, she was just professional and amazing and so humble, and man, could she play. And so the kids were just in awe and inspired, and it was just so much fun. And I'll be honest, I think as many accomplishments as our program has had, I can't imagine ever doing anything better than having Doreen Kitchens on our stage with that wind ensemble. It was just so much fun. Some of my kids got to do a little combo with her to close our concert, and we did When the Saints Go Marching In, and she sang, and I mean, the community just came. I mean, I just cannot describe how incredible this was. I'm almost speechless about it.
Now, yeah, I'm sure. So I saw her at Midwest last year. She played with the President's Own, and my wife was with me, who's not a musician. She's a fifth grade teacher, and I said, well, we got to go see the President's Own, and she understood that much. And I said, but there's this musician with them named Doreen Ketchens. She is phenomenal. She's, of course, she has no idea who the clarinet players are of the world, but after we got out of that concert, she was like, oh my gosh, I just didn't know the clarinet could do that.
Yeah. I mean, we had school board members, superintendents, principals in this concert. We invited our mayor and some of our city council members. Our mayor actually introduced her during the concert, which was kind of fun. And of course, I got all of these ideas from Stan. I don't think anything that I did for this concert was not an idea. I didn't steal from Stan Malden, because he's just brilliant, of course. But we like I said, we had our mayor, all these people just came, and a lot of them were not musicians. And so they fully came out of this concert just in shock and awe and just thoroughly impressed. And we're just happy that we were able to get someone so big into our small little town and community. They were just elated. One of our school board members sent me an email right afterwards about how thrilled she was. It was just really neat to experience the whole community get rally around this situation and get to see her. And we didn't charge anything for the concert, so it was pretty packed house. It was nice.
So, and something that your students will never forget. I mean, absolutely never forget.
Never. Yeah, no way. And they still talk about it to this day. I mean, it's only been a few months, but I have a feeling they're going to be talking about it for years to come. And I will definitely try to do it again. I can't imagine not doing it again with her.
Yeah. We create so many different experiences with our kids outside of our school. You know, I have a bunch of memories from my program performing in great places, but I don't have a whole lot of them performing in our own hall, which is crazy to me. You know, not that we haven't performed really well in our own hall, but there's just so many. You know, I've never brought somebody in like Doreen to play with my symphonic band. That's just incredible. That's so cool that you had a chance to do that.
Yeah, I owe it all to Stan, and of course Stan came. I had to bribe him kind of, and just beg him to come because he wasn't sure if he could make it, and he came and just helped with the whole situation. Because I definitely was nervous. That first rehearsal was just. I'm sitting here thinking, I'm going to follow her. And then she turns and looks at me and says, no, I want to follow you. And so it was just kind of this very nerve-wracking situation at first. And when I finally relaxed, and then it just became super fun with her. But so it's definitely because of Stan.
Sure. Talk a little bit about the rehearsal. So how does that work? I mean, I'm sure there was a build-up. I'm sure that you had rehearsals with your own kids, and you knew your music really, really well. But how did it happen? Like, how does that work whenever she's in the room? Do you have multiple rehearsals? Do you, I'd be shaken. I mean, I would absolutely be shaken.
Well, I definitely was as well. And basically, she just said, I will do whatever you say. And so with Stan's help, we just kind of decided we were going to do one major rehearsal the night before. I think we rehearsed for about 3 hours with her the night before. And my kids were gracious enough to just show up and rehearse with her for 3 hours. And then the next morning, the day of the concert, we rehearsed during the school day. And so we start band rehearsal early before school even starts, and then we rehearse until about 9:30, and that was it. We had maybe 5 hours of rehearsal with her before it was all said and done. But she's just so professional. She could have done it without the rehearsal. The rehearsal was definitely not for her. It was definitely for me and my kids, just to make sure we weren't the ones that are going to mess this up, because there was no way she was going to, because she's just so good. So yeah, we rehearsed maybe a total of 5 hours. We paid for her hotel, and she came in the night before, and she stayed a couple nights, and that was it.
Wow. Yeah, it's crazy. We could spend another 20 minutes on this, because I'm so floored that you got to do it. But let's go on. Let's move on. So what other accomplishments have you had at Kaufman? I'm sure you don't just get to play a concert with one of the best jazz clarinet players in the world. There's some more to Kaufman, I'm sure.
I think over the last few years we've definitely seen some success. I mean, we're seeing the UIL success with sweepstakes and those sort of things. Last year was the first year that we've sort of started seeing some bigger success. My first year as head director, we qualified for the state marching contest in 4A, and then we popped up to 5A and struggled a little bit because we're not really a 5A band, and we're definitely small for 5A. Our band was probably the smallest at the 5A state marching contest this past year. But we qualified this past year for the state marching contest. But I also, with the help of Stan and people like Jeff King, we submitted for the honor band, the Texas TMEA honor band, and we wound up getting 8th place in the state finals not this past summer, but 2 summers ago now. And we weren't able to submit this year because we went back down to 4A again. But we are slowly starting, I think this program is slowly starting to see small successes turn into big ones, like qualifying for the state marching contest. And, who knows? I don't know what's going to happen in 4A now that we went back down to 4A, which is where we belong because we truly are a small school. But I can see us doing well in all the circuits, and as long as we keep consistent and the kids keep showing up.
Sure. So do you travel with your kids?
We do. I should have mentioned, I took them to Carnegie Hall, I think 2 or 3 years ago. We performed in Carnegie Hall, and that was awesome too. It was up there on the level of performing with someone like Doreen Kitchens, just being in that hall and getting to experience the history that has. And so Have traveled to New York City, of course, and have traveled to Disney World and done all kinds of things. But I do try to travel. We go in-state, out-of-state kind of rotation every other year.
Sure. So where do you go in state, in Texas? Where do you go? Where do you take your kids?
This year, we're planning on doing a trip to probably South Padre Island over the spring break holiday. I always thought it was kind of crazy to go during spring break to South Padre Island, but I'm hearing that it's not as crazy as it is. So I think we're going to go to South Padre Island. Of course, there's San Antonio. I try to stay away from San Antonio because that's where the state marching contest is, and if we make state, then we've already been to San Antonio for a few days. But Houston is a good place too, but we'll be at South Padre this year.
Yeah, San Antonio has always been on my list to go. We've never, we were scheduled to go one year, but we changed to we changed to Washington, D.C. at the last minute before we had to sign papers. But everybody says San Antonio's such a great place for music and for music programs. Can you attest to that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much to do. And of course, you've got all the different theme parks, but music is what the reason everybody goes to San Antonio in our world. That's where the state marching contest is hosted. That's where all our band director conventions are hosted. And it's just, there's so much to do. You can stay in downtown. There's the Alamo. There's, Six Flags. It's definitely a cool kid place, but taking them and performing in the Alamo Dome, or if you are lucky enough to win something like the Honor Band, is basically what we would do in San Antonio. And it's a neat experience to get to perform in the Alamo Dome for sure.
Sure. When you travel, is it an every year experience, or is it every other year, or how do you guys do that?
We travel every year, but only big trips every other year. So last year we went to Disney World, and this year we'll go to South Padre, and we just kind of go in-state, out-of-state every year.
Sure. Yeah, that Disney trip is phenomenal. I love the way you can take an 18-year-old and put them in that park, and then all of a sudden their face lights up, and they're crying because they see Mickey, and they're crying because they marched in the parade and they were marched right past the castle or whatever. I'll never stop going to Disney just because I love to see my tough 18-year-old kids turn into kids again when they see that park.
Yeah, we have kids for sure our town is small and these kids don't get out. As close as they are to Dallas, some of them don't even come to Dallas very often or at all. And so I've had kids I think when we went to Carnegie Hall, we flew, of course, and some kids had never even set foot in an airport, or much less, I had one kid, I think, even said he had never even been on an escalator before. And so these kids get to experience just the most randomest things that you take for granted that you don't realize that they don't know anything about. And so that's part of the reason I like to travel with them and just get to see them learn how to be out in the real world.
Yeah. Yeah, my town's 3,200 people. That's what the sign says. I think it's actually 29 or maybe 2,800 people. But my kids, they're farmers mostly. So we had I took them up to Chicago, and they got to be a demonstration band at Midwest, and we were waiting right outside of it, and it had to do with Stan. Stan got us, he actually made that all happen. But anyway, we were standing outside of Giordano's, a deep dish pizza place in Chicago, and we were waiting for a big band to come out of that place so that we could go in and eat. Well, it was December, of course, Midwest is in December, and we're standing in the snow. It had just started snowing, and we're on the sidewalk, and this band comes out, and instantly the phones come up, and they're videoing the snow. They're just in awe of the snow. And I had a kid standing right next to me, and they're like, "Where do you think this band is from?" And I go, "Texas." And they're like, "How do you know?" And I go, "Those kids have never seen snow." And so I said, "Hey guys, where are you guys from?" And they're like, "We're from Texas." I can't remember what town it was, but they're from South Texas. I was like, I knew it because you guys were so enamored with the snow.
Yeah, it's rare here in Texas. We do get it periodically, but it is rare.
But that's one of the cool things about traveling with your kids, is that we give them so many experiences, not just with music, most of it has to do with music, but as trivial as seeing snow for the first time. Stan tells a story about his kids going to New York and making snowmen for the first time, and which I love that story. It's just such a fun story that he and his kids do. But that's one thing that we band directors and choir directors and just music directors get to do with our kids that not many people get to do.
Yep, that's for sure. I mean, just the food alone, I think some of the food that they get to experience, or just the small little cultural things that they don't usually get when they're stuck at home all the time. So yeah, it's fun to get to watch those kids do that.
Yeah. Gerardo, how many years have you taught music?
I always have to count, and then I'm usually wrong. I think it's 22.
Yeah.
I think it's 22. This might be year 23. I want to say I'm starting year 23 now.
So I always like to ask people if they could give a younger version of themselves advice, or if they could give a brand new director advice. What would that be? And what would doing things over for you in your first job look like?
I think you need to just get over the fear of asking questions. I was definitely afraid of asking people to listen to my recordings. Sometimes I didn't have a choice because, like I said, we did have someone like Stan. We had Dan Gibbs in our band hall, and that was just the norm. And so I kind of got taught that very early. But most people don't get that. They have to call someone that lives far away, but look for that person. And in my case, it was Dan Gibbs and Jeff King and Stan Weldon. Cindy Bullock is another name that I could easily mention. But if you can find that one person, even if it's just your high school band director in this case, but find that one person that is willing to help you, whether that's listen to recordings, help you lesson plan, and don't be afraid to ask questions and ask for help. And I think that's where most people kind of get stuck at first, is just being afraid to ask. So yes, ask for help and ask lots of questions and write things down.
Yeah. And I already know the answer to this question, but are you still asking questions? Are you still learning, and how do you do that?
For sure. There's not a day or a month or a year that goes by that I did not ask all these people dozens and dozens of questions. Even if it's just a simple, hey, I'm thinking about trying something this way. What do you think? And then of course I get a long text or a phone call immediately. But yes, never stop learning, of course.
I have a close friend who started out to be my mentor, pretty much my mentor, but his name's Rodney Washburn, and he's retired now. He directs a local muni band, but he has such a wealth of knowledge of teaching in small schools and what it's like to have realistic expectations and goals and things like that. I mean, I just painted my practice field we start our full band camp tomorrow, and I just painted my practice field, and for the first time I painted dots. I saw other people doing two-step dots.
Sure.
I didn't do two-step dots, but I did a four-step in between the yard lines. And I shot him a picture of it and said, "What do you think of this?" And he goes, "I hate it." Because he didn't say I hate it, but he's like, "I just question it because once you get on a real field, what are you going to do when it's yard marks rather than step marks?" And I'm hoping that the muscle memory by that time will take over. But it's so important to have people like that to be able to shoot ideas from or off of, and just get ideas from.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part, is getting the courage to ask. I think people are afraid of feeling dumb or not good enough, but no one ever truly feels that way about you when you ask them questions. They actually think the opposite way when you ask them a question.
Yeah, I think so. I think they actually respect you more when you're asking questions. Yeah.
As long as you listen and do what they say.
Right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, we're coming to the end of this interview. What do you do outside of music? Do you have any hobbies? Do you do anything that gets you kind of away from it for a little while?
Well, when I have time, I do like to spend time at home with my husband, or he likes to garden, so I like to garden too with him. Um, I love a good movie. I just got I just watched The Odyssey and it was awesome. So I do try to spend time just not thinking about band when I can because it can definitely consume your life. But my I think my husband would chuckle if he heard me actually say that because it does consume you, and so you have to try really hard, and sometimes he has to force me to not think about it. So you just do whatever you can, whether that's go to a movie or go to dinner and put the phone away if possible, or just get outside and garden. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's something that people we as band directors need to realize is that you got to put it away at least a little while. Get away from it for an hour or two, and it's always going to be there when you come back. And that's one thing that I didn't learn until, probably COVID taught me that. The shutdown of everything taught me this can be put away, and we can still pick it back up. And kids are resilient, and they don't need you around all the time, and you don't need to be around them all the time. So it's just that's probably in my 24 years of teaching, that's probably my advice to younger band directors is just know when to put it away. You'll get it back out, and it's not going to go anywhere, and you're not going to forget anything. Just be able to get away from it for a little while.
Yep. It is hard to do, though.
It is. Yes, it is. Yeah. And my wife would say the same thing as your husband would. You don't know how to do that still. So
Yes.
she would think that I still need a couple lessons in that. But anyway, thank you, Gerardo. Thank you so much for coming on this podcast and sharing your story. And it's just it's one of small town success, and I think it's just awesome that you were willing to share your knowledge.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. And I got to call Stan now and say thank him.
Absolutely. And thank you for listening to Small Town Sound. If you've enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with somebody who believes in the power of education and small town communities. Until next time, I'm Steve Brown, reminding you that every small town has a story, and every story deserves to be heard. Thank you very much.